Bry's Comics.
As you've hopefully seen by now, Marvel recently released a new video with teaser clips from upcoming movies. If you're a fan of the MCU, it will give you goosebumps. And if you haven't seen it, I'll leave a link down in the description so you can go watch that. It is a must-see. And there are YouTube channels that are completely dedicated to revealing Easter eggs and unraveling these types of things from Marvel. And so what I want to focus on is the one thing that I think has the biggest impact on comic book speculation, and that is under what moniker will Monica Rambeau show up as in the MCU. I've touched on this before, but now we have even more information, and I really want to hear from you guys and see what your opinion is. So after we get through all the details of the video, leave a comment down below about what your opinion is, and you'll be entered to win 2 copies of the first appearance of Monica Rambeau as Spectrum in Mighty Avengers #1. We have the cover A here and the Deadpool variant. So only those subscribed to the channel will be eligible to win. So subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, and you're entered to win those 2 books. All right, so this is the big title card reveal for the next Captain Marvel movie. It's not going to be called Captain Marvel 2, it's going to be called The Marvels. And you can see here in the title card elements of 3 characters. The text there that says The Marvel is distinctly like Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. The S is distinctly like Miss Marvel's S for Miss Marvel, and that show is slated for later in 2021 on Disney Plus. And make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because next week I'm dropping a whole video about spec books for Miss Marvel that are still worth picking up. And then we have the little symbol that's in the A there, which is distinctly associated with Monica Rambeau. But the question is, under what moniker will Monica Rambeau show up as? So Monica Rambeau is officially introduced to the MCU in the recent WandaVision series on Disney Plus. And in that show, we get to see the origin of her superpowers, which is slightly different than the origin of her superpowers in the comics. But her superhero name is not given. She's just still called Monica Rambeau, and we don't know what her superhero name is going to be. And Monica Rambeau has had somewhat of a frustrating history of name changes in the comic book continuity of Marvel. She first appeared as Captain Marvel in Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. This is the first appearance of Monica Rambeau. Then she goes on to become Photon in Avengers Unplugged number 5. And then something strange happens. Another character, Gaines Vale, steals the name Photon, and Monica Rambeau makes a cameo appearance in that series and confronts him and changes her name to Pulsar because she's pissed off about him stealing her name Photon. So now her name is Pulsar. And then in 2013 in Mighty Avengers #1, she debuts a new costume and a new name of Spectrum. And the costume change is the interesting thing, and we'll get back to that. So she currently shows up in Marvel Comics as Spectrum. Ever since 2013, she's been Spectrum, and she's currently Spectrum, even as recently as earlier this year, showing up as Spectrum. Let's take a look at the different costumes associated with the different names, starting with Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16. Here we have her first appearance as Captain Marvel, and you'll notice the black and white costume with the all-black starburst in the center of her chest. Next, we have Photon in a very similar costume, but a slightly different starburst shape in the center of her chest, but still it's all black. And here she is as Pulsar, and I can't tell any noticeable difference from the costume of Photon. And finally, we have her here as Spectrum, with a distinctly different starburst shape that has 2 colors, the top portion being gray and the bottom portion being black. Let's take a look at the movie title card, and there you can see in the A, the little symbol that is almost identical to Spectrum symbol. And it's important to note that the gray version doesn't show up in any of the other costumes for Monica Rambeau, and none of the other costumes have any gray in it. It's just one solid black starburst. So Spectrum is the only one where there's any gray, and there's basically 2 shapes that combine together. And that little shape in the A in the title card is the top portion of the starburst shape from Spectrum's outfit. So if you combine that little Easter egg in the title card with the fact that she is currently Spectrum in Marvel continuity, to me, it makes the most sense that she will show up as Spectrum in this movie. I think if Marvel were to flip-flop her name again, if they were to go back to an older name in the comic continuity, that would just add more frustration to an already frustrating name change situation with her. But I still don't know for sure, and nobody knows for sure. There doesn't seem to be any consensus about this in the community about what her name is going to be. It is literally still up in the air. And the only reason it really matters, the only people who really care about what name she's going to have are comic book speculators. So I'm still kind of confused as to why Marvel is making such a big mystery out of it, or maybe they're not making a mystery out of it. Maybe to them, it's just not that important and they didn't actually have it come to fruition. But I don't think that they would leave such a big thing out like that unless it was intentional. And I just find it hard to believe that this is intentional just for comic book speculators. I mean, how big of an audience is this? The vast majority of people don't really care what her name is. They just want to see her on screen with her superpowers, which she's going to have no matter what her name is. So I'm a little confused about the whole thing about why they're making such a big mystery out of what her name is going to be, unless maybe it has something to do with the bigger story arc. And maybe that's why they're holding it a secret. Because the one thing that I can't quite figure out is the name The Marvels. Okay, Miss Marvel has the name Marvel in it. Captain Marvel has the name Marvel in it. But what about Monica Rambeau's name? Spectrum? I mean, it has nothing to do with Marvels. You know, is she going to be another Captain Marvel? Is she going to take over the mantle of Captain Marvel? I don't know. But if she was going to take over the mantle of Captain Marvel, why would they use Spectrum's symbol? Why not use the all black starburst symbol from the comics? It's just, there's so much uncertainty. I think what's clear and obvious would be that it's just Spectrum, that there's no big mystery, that her current name is Spectrum in the comics, and they're using that same symbol from her outfit in the title card. So yeah, it's Spectrum. Like, what's the big mystery? But don't know. All right, so let's talk about prices for her first appearance in Mighty Avengers #1. You can still pick it up on eBay all day for around $20. And it's selling for between $100 and $200 for a CGC 9.8. So I can see this book easily being a $400 book if she is confirmed as Spectrum, especially when she's looking all badass on the screen and she like gains even more of a fan following, and she has this long potential future in the MCU. I mean, easily a $400 book, especially with the way prices are heading right now in the comic book market. But it's already had multiple sales right now for $200. So it's a fantastic ROI if you can pick this up for $20 raw near mint and get it slabbed. So we actually have a really cool comparison that we can make that is basically apples to apples with Carol Danvers' first appearance as Captain Marvel in Avenging Spider-Man #9 and Monica Rambeau's first appearance as Spectrum in Mighty Avengers #1. So let's look at the prices for Avenging Spider-Man #9. So this was a nothing book. I mean, it was a $25 CGC 9.8 until it was announced that Carol Danvers is going to be Captain Marvel. And then it went up to about a $200 book. And then when the trailer was dropped for the movie, it peaked at $800 for a CGC 9.8 with an average sale of around $600 for a CGC 9.8. And it's came down a little bit since then. So it's right in line with all of the stuff going on with Mighty Avengers #1. Both characters had their first appearance in a previous older book, and both characters had a first appearance as a specific superhero name in Avenging Spider-Man #9 or Mighty Avengers #1. And that number, the $800 high price, was back in 2018 when the market was not nearly as hot as it is now. And I firmly believe that Teyonah Parris will have a much better fan following and is way more well received than Brie Larson was in Captain Marvel. So potentially Mighty Avengers 1 could way outprice and outsell what Avenging Spider-Man #9. Now there's a couple caveats. #1, it hasn't been confirmed that Monica Rambeau is going to appear as Spectrum. That's the huge caveat for this one, right? But secondly, the print runs aren't quite the same. The Avenging Spider-Man 9 is definitely way more rare of a book than Mighty Avengers 1, because Avenging Spider-Man number 9 was issue number 9 in a series where naturally readership falls off, and Mighty Avengers 1 is the first issue in a series, which naturally is, ordered way more copies. So the print runs aren't the same, but I think just how hot the market is now compared to 2018 will balance out the prices of these two books. I think that they will be very much in line with each other, granted that she is confirmed as Spectrum in the MCU. Don't forget to head on over to brycecomics.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you're entered to win a free slab each and every month. This month is Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme number 1, a CGC 9/8, the first appearance of Kushala, first appearance of the Mindful One, first team appearance of the Forgotten, and first appearance of Nina the Conjurer. There's a lot going on with that spec book. All you have to do to enter to win that is subscribe to the newsletter over at the website. And also, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about the Spectrum debate, and if you have any other information about, how she's going to show up in the MCU. I would love to hear from you guys. And in so doing, you're entered to win the two books, the Cover A and the Deadpool variant of Mighty Avengers number 1, first appearance of Monica Rambeau as Spectrum. As always, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of the video, and we will catch you in the next video. Bye.
Bryce Comics.